It is that time of the week. College football returns tomorrow with three games. North Carolina, Wake Forest in a non conference game that I have already done a video on. Kansas and Boston College in a game that Boston College should win handily. And then lastly, a very interesting and should be explosive and high scoring game between Mike Leach and Washington State and Dana Holgorsen in Houston. I like Washington State to win this game. I think it'll be a very close game. I'm not sure that Houston is quite as good as people were saying they were going to be before the season started. I think Washington State wins in a shootout, say 45-38 or something like that. Pick your score, honestly, because Washington State will have their way. Houston's defense is not very good. It'll be close, but Washington State's going to be too much. Now, on to a game that I think could be an upset this weekend. USC, fresh off that win over Stanford, who was without KJ Costello, takes on BYU, who's coming off that miraculous win at Tennessee. I think that is an upset alert game. I actually think BYU is going to win. I'm not sold on USC just because they blew out a Stanford team that was using a backup quarterback. It'll take a little more than that for me to trust that program again. Now, there are some other intriguing games to maybe watch for the possibility of an upset. Washington, coming off of an upset loss to California last week, takes on the Pac-12 leader, Hawaii. Yeah, I know my jokes aren't very good, but Hawaii is 2-0 against the Pac-12. Watch that game. Cole McDonald is a pretty good quarterback. He's nothing near what Colt Brennan was when he took Hawaii to the Sugar Bowl. But if Hawaii can even make this a competitive game for 4 quarters, the Warriors can get themselves into the group of 5 New Year's 6 race potentially, depending on how things go with UCF and Boise State. Speaking of UCF, they've got a very big game against Stanford. If UCF loses this game at home to unranked Stanford, all their stuff is over. Everything they've been talking about, everything they've had for the last couple years, it's down the drain. If they win, it's still there. It's as simple as that. I think Stanford could win this game. I don't think they will. I like UCF by a touchdown at home against Stanford, who's reeling right now after getting thoroughly dominated by USC last weekend. Elsewhere in New York, Syracuse, things are only going to get worse before they get better for Dino Babers' team. After losing by 43 to Maryland, Syracuse has to take on Clemson in a game that got a lot of preseason hype. Seemed like a lock-cinch pipe for College Game Day to go there. Then that happens, and now they're in Ames, and this game isn't going to be close. I know Syracuse has played Clemson tight the last couple years, but this game isn't going to be close. Let's be real. Clemson, pick your number. Pick your score. Clemson's going to win by 30 in the Carrier Dome. In Pennsylvania, the final meeting of an in-state rivalry between Pittsburgh and Penn State. I'm not sure how much of a rivalry it really is because Penn State has absolutely owned that series, with the exception being that game in 2016, which Pittsburgh barely won. Pittsburgh's got a solid defense. I'm not sure they have the offense to compete with Penn State. I think Penn State wins easily, even though it is the final meeting. So I would tell Penn State to be cautious because rivalries, you know what they say, you can throw out the records. Well, this is their final meeting for the foreseeable future. So I expect Pittsburgh to come out determined, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think at the end of the day, Penn State will pull away. Speaking of the Big Ten, Maryland has a very intriguing game on the road in Philadelphia, staying in Pennsylvania. They're taking on Temple, who's a quality American Athletic Conference team that actually blasted Maryland in College Park a year ago. I don't think Temple will blast Maryland again. In fact, I think Maryland will return the favor. I think Maryland's offense is really legit. And in a couple of weeks, Maryland plays Penn State on a Friday night, and they're already adding student seating. That game could be the biggest home game in Maryland history, only to, if they win that game, be replaced by the Michigan game later on. But Temple could pull the upset. It would not be shocking to me if it happened, but I just think Maryland's offense with Josh Jackson at quarterback, it's too explosive. I'm just not sure Temple can stop it. Syracuse couldn't stop it. I'm not sure Temple can. Ohio State and Michigan could legitimately be the only two teams in the Big Ten that could stop it. Maybe Wisconsin, but they don't play them this year. I mean, Mike Locksley has done an absolutely incredible job at Maryland already. But their schedule will start to get tougher. It'll be interesting to see how Maryland deals with a more challenging schedule as they start to get into Big Ten play in a couple of weeks. Another intriguing game that's gone a bit under the radar, Texas Tech plays at Arizona. Khalil Tate, people thought he was going to be something special last year. He wasn't. Can he make some noise? I think Arizona's going to win that game. Texas Tech still transitioning out of the air raid. I think Arizona wins in a close one. Some FCS over FBS upsets to watch for. Speaking of transitioning from an offense, Georgia Tech, in the middle of transitioning out of the triple option, takes on the Citadel, who you might remember was tied with Alabama at halftime last year. Tied with Alabama in Tuscaloosa at halftime last year. That's one. I think Chattanooga, Tennessee certainly has to be one at this point. That's how far Tennessee's fallen. I mean, it's just unbelievable how far that program has fallen. And now Nebraska, 2 years ago, Nebraska lost a home game to Northern Illinois. Nebraska plays Northern Illinois again. I'm not too sure Nebraska is a guaranteed winner. I was never very high on Nebraska. In fact, I was always on the Nebraska's way overrated train. They're overrated. They got stunned by Colorado last week. I'm kind of interested to see how they respond from that. In the Pac-12 right now, I like Utah to win that conference, to be honest with you. Washington, as I said, has to be wary about Hawaii. Utah now seems to be the best team, but they've got a tricky game coming up at USC soon. So we'll see more about them. Next week, for my Under the Radar Game of the Week video, I'll be doing an American Conference showdown between Houston and Tulane. Tulane is one of my sleepers to make some noise in the group of 5. And then for the Game of the Week, I could not choose Notre Dame, Georgia. A great game in South Bend in week 4. I'm already looking forward to it. And I really can't wait. Should be a great game, great atmosphere. Apparently the ticket prices are ridiculously high. And I wonder if Notre Dame's going to travel as well to Georgia as Georgia did when they traveled to Notre Dame. And with that, I am going to sign off. See y'all next week.